Gas supplies to the Transnistrian region will be routed through a European trader, Moldovan Prime Minister Dorin Rechan confirmed after a meeting of the Commission for Emergency Situations. Russian-occupied Transnistria previously rejected the European Union's offer of 60 million euros in financial aid, funds that were intended to help the region cope with the energy crisis and cover 70% of social energy consumption. According to Dorin Rechan, gas supplies to the region will continue. Starting February 13, Transnistria will receive 3 million cubic meters of gas daily, with any additional volumes subject to taxation by Chisinau. Additionally, on February 11 and 12, Moldova Gas will send Tiraspol Transgas 2 million cubic meters and provide another 3 million cubic meters on loan, which must be repaid by the end of March.
Based on the information we have at this moment, gas deliveries will come from a European trader in the amount of 3 million cubic meters per day over the next 16 days. If natural gas supplies exceed this daily limit and major industrial facilities resume operations, the government in Chisinau will impose taxes on these transactions.
According to the Moldovan Prime Minister, a Hungarian company will take over gas deliveries to Russian-controlled Transnistria after February 10th.
Both companies have undergone verification. Meti Gas and Energy Marketing AG is a natural gas trader operating in the European market. As for JNX General Trading LLC, no violations of national or international law have been identified. It was also not established that Moldovan citizens were behind these companies.
Russian gas supplies to Russian-occupied Transnistria were cut off in January 2025 after the transit contract through Ukraine expired. Despite having alternative supply routes, Gazprom refused to continue delivering gas to the region. Following this, Tiraspol agreed to accept 20 million euros from an EU grant, approved by Moldova's Commission for Emergency Situations. These funds allowed Transnistria to purchase gas until February 10th. EU Commissioner for Enlargement Marta Kos stated that the European Union was willing to continue providing support which would help the region avoid blackmail and energy instability. However, Transnistria was required to meet several conditions: increase electricity tariffs to market levels, exclude energy-intensive industrial consumers from the support package, and implement measures to uphold human rights.
The only real concern we have is that people on the left bank have become hostages of this situation. Over 350,000 Transnistrian residents hold Moldovan passports. This is why the Moldovan government's task is to provide them with humanitarian aid. At first, Transnistria's puppet regime rejected any assistance, but only after the Kremlin and its proxies in Tiraspol realized that Chisinau would not engage in non-transparent schemes were they forced to accept humanitarian aid.
Russia's attempts to create an energy crisis and thus destabilize Moldova are widely linked to the country's upcoming parliamentary elections. The current parliamentary mandate expires on July 11, 2025. No later than 3 months after this date, Moldova will hold elections. Analysts predict that Russia will use all available resources to gain control over Moldova's parliament. Moscow is expected to resort to vote buying, influence operations through media and orchestrated street protests, essentially repeating the tactics it used during Moldova's 2024 presidential elections and European integration referendum. At that time, the voting process was marred by large-scale bribery, fraud and intensified Russian propaganda efforts. Reported by Sergei Kulas, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News. For decades, the only supplier of gas to Moldova and Russia-occupied Transnistria was Moscow. Physically, the fuel went through the Ukrainian gas pipeline. Already at the end of 2022, against the backdrop of a full-scale war against Ukraine and Chisinau's position on aggression, Russia halved gas supplies to Moldova. As a result, the right bank of the country completely switched to European markets, while the Russian-controlled Transnistria remained on the Kremlin's gas needle. From January 1, 2025, Kyiv closed the valve for Russian gas in the interests of national security, and Moscow refused to provide alternative gas supplies to Tiraspol, provoking an energy crisis.
This crisis is entirely manufactured by Russia. It is, of course, connected to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but it is quite separate from the dispute over the transit of gas between Russia and Ukraine. This was a crisis manufactured from the beginning by Russia by inventing a supposed figure of $800 million, which supposedly Moldova owed Russia in unpaid gas bills.
As a result, on January 1st, 2025, residents of Russia-controlled Transnistria woke up with cold radiators in their homes. Hundreds of businesses stopped working, and the occupation authorities were forced to introduce blackout schedules and extend New Year vacations. While Moscow remained silent, help was offered in Brussels and Kyiv.
Transnistria's possible acceptance of aid from Moldova, Ukraine or the EU, and Transnistria's subsequent supply of cheaper electricity to the rest of Moldova would disrupt Russian efforts to use the energy crisis to strengthen Transnistria's economic dependence on Moscow, to posture Russia as the breakaway republic's savior and benefactor, and to leverage Chisinau's turn to higher-priced European electricity as part of Moscow's anti-EU narratives. From a report by the Institute for the Study of War.
From February 1st to February 10th, Russian-controlled Transnistria will receive gas on credit, and the costs will be covered by EU aid. This is to maintain pressure in the system. For its part, Kyiv offers assistance to Chisinau to overcome the crisis. Ukraine is ready to provide Moldova and Russian-occupied Transnistria with free coal in exchange for electricity and to send Ukrainian specialists to the neighboring country to ensure the operation of the Kushuran power station.
The situation now is extremely difficult in the region, and not only because of Russian shelling or the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Moldova is going through an absolutely artificial energy crisis which Moscow has created for the sake of negatively influencing Moldova's independence and the result of parliamentary elections in Moldova. And this is a classic scheme of Moscow. They create problems for normal democratic power in the country in order to bring the power their own people. They are agents.
Experts link the artificial energy crisis in Moldova to the upcoming parliamentary elections in the country. During the presidential elections and the referendum on the country's accession to the European Union, Chisinau officially claimed hundreds of millions of dollars spent by the Kremlin to destabilize democratic processes. Analysts do not doubt that Moscow will not miss the opportunity to bring its proxies into the Moldovan parliament by any means. Reported by Serhiy Kulias, Larissa Petruk, UATV News.